Hi guys! Happy Thursday, it's Clarice, and today we are doing a tutorial on daisies. I have done a really quick basic painting of daisies right here, and I figured I could show you two styles that we can execute. I have done a very a bare bones sort of sketch for the daisy placement, and I am going to kind of show you how it would turn out if we actually paint a daisy while we have some sort of guidance to kind of have some sort of guidance to, you know, where the placement is, and then so a more controlled daisy as opposed to one that's very loose. Mind you, I have drawn it in over here, but you're going to see the difference once we kind of start painting. So hope you guys are excited, and if you are new to my channel and enjoy watercolor florals or just watercolor in general, please consider subscribing and consider liking this video if you like it. So I think we are ready to begin, so let's start. So for the center of the daisy, I have decided we are going to be mixing colors to get like a nice warm yellow. We're going to be using the cadmium red light and the cadmium lemon to get like a nice orangey mango-y kind of color. And then to indicate the shadowy area of it, the burnt umber will do quite nicely, so I have that as well. For the actual petals themselves, I want more of a bluish tinge as opposed to a gray, so feel free to use your Payne's gray, if you will, or I'm using the Russian blue, so I'm going to be using a very slight tinge of it. And then finally, for the stems and the leaves, I've decided I want to do the yellowish green mixed with a little bit of the cadmium lemon to get like a nice bright green. Yes, so that's what we're using. And then for the brushes, we're going to be using the Silver Black Velvet and the Filbert number 6. And I have my palette by Lisi Art on Instagram, and I think we are good to go. All right, so as indicated in the beginning, we are going to be painting these ones first, the ones that I've kind of illustrated in. I'm going to be mixing some of the cadmium light, red light in here. And then I'm getting some of my lemon in there, and that's perfect. This is the kind of color I want. And then once I have this, I'm gonna wash my brush off and get some of the brown. I think this should be enough for this painting that we have going on. If we need more, we can always mix some more. But here's some of the brown. Actually, for this, I could even just get it directly from my palette. And I'm going to get a little bit more of this leftover lemon and leave it here. Also wash away any of this excess cadmium red light that we have in there. And then finally, I want a little bit of my blue, my Russian blue. And I'm going to move that over here on this end and just really water it down. Getting a little bit more. Of it just off to the side here. And then finally, I want some of my green. So mixing some of that green on here. And then some of the lemon with the green. So I want a little bit more green in this, so I'm going to get some more of that. And you know what? I think this is a little bit too bright. And if I add some more lemon, it might work, but then it might be a little bit too much of a fluorescent. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to introduce the raw umber onto the side just in case I need a tinge of it. I think that should make it mute it down and make it more to my liking. That's perfect. That is what I want. Okay, so this is what we're going to be using for the green stems and the leaves. All right, and we are good to begin. So let's start, guys. The first thing I'm going to start off doing or painting is going to be the centers, and for that I'm going to be using the number 4 silver black velvet. So what I'd like to do is do one of these 2 main daisies, with one with the petals using the number 4 and then the other one using the filbert number 6. So let's begin. I am going to be getting the nice mango-y color we've done here for our center, and what I'm going to do is just go ahead and dab away at it and leaving white space in between. I'm just kind of dabbing very sporadically, randomly in this dome shape sort of structure that I have loosely drawn out. And spot, 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 dot, dot, dot. And then once I've done that, I'm going to get some of the brown right here. And then I'm just going to add that brown to the bottom of the base, sorry, bottom base, whatever you want to call it, of the dome. And I'm just going to add a couple of dots just like around the top as well, just so it kind of blends in. And I'm seeing that the brown is nice, but it's not as dark as I anticipated it to be. So I'm just getting some, I got some brown directly from the palette itself, the color cake, and I'm just adding some to the base. I might go in there after, once it's dried up, and add a couple more of the brown dots. But for now, I think that's a good light and shadow indication. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get some of the, I'm going to use the number 4 to create the petals of these ones. So I'm going to get a little bit of the blue. I know I have some on there, but I could barely see it, so I'm just getting a tad bit more. And you got to make sure that your brush is washed off properly, otherwise your blue is going to look like a greeny color. Now this is too much blue that I have here, but I'm going to try and wash off some, get a little bit more. There's a piece of hair right there. Just going to take that out. There we go. Get some of the blue. All right, and so we're going right into this. And what I'm going to do is, touching the center, a little bit of that, I'm just going to extend very loose strokes outward. So I've done some blue there. I'm going to do some over here. And then dipping to get some water. I'm going to get some more blue from there. And then literally just from the center, I'm going outward, only on one side of this petal. Same thing over here. And I'm getting some of that lemon or the yellow that we have in there because I'm touching it as I am painting along. Now for this one, it's a little bit too much blue, but that's okay because it always dries up a lot lighter. And what I'm doing is, I'm doing only one side of the petals, and then I'm kind of going over on the other side with a little bit more water and leaving the center with white space. And what happens is I'm trying to achieve that effect where as I'm creating these strokes, the darkest areas are bluey in color, and the lightest areas, to show your white or to give that impression of white, has a lot of white space in there. So it's very, very important that you kind of control how much blue you're using and where. So for instance, right now, I'm literally just like outlining these petals, and some of them are getting some of the lemon in there too. And that's okay because we're doing a very loose style of painting. So I don't mind if there's a little bit of reflection of yellow in these, but you can see that we've got some nice white space happening, and it kind of indicates the shadow, right? Now, some of them might not have white space. So for instance, like, and that can be indicative of like there's a lot of shadow there, so that's okay. Now this one, I'm doing like another petal right here to kind of make this a more fuller looking daisy. And I'm not really giving it too much detail. I'm literally just outlining it, for lack of a better way of explaining. And again, I'm going to try and take a little bit of the blue. And this one here, I'm literally just going to do a curve on the side in between these two petals. So like you've got two really saturated with blue petals, and then you've got just like the curve to indicate there's a petal here. I'm hoping I make sense to you guys. And I really like how some of this has seeped into the petal, and I'm going to try and get a little bit more of that. So this is why it's imperative that you do this step right after you do the center of the flower. So again, I'm doing another petal, the curve of a petal right here on this end. And then I'll do one over here too. And I think the others I can just kind of leave as is. So we've got like this really pretty daisy, which I think you can see, but it's very, very light. So we're gonna move on to the next one, let this dry a bit. And we'll move on to that one right there. Okay, so for this one, we are going to use the number 4 again for the center. So I'm going to be using the pre-mixed color that we have here and just start painting the center exactly like we did the top version of it. This one, I'm going to start off from like doing the dots directly into the center because this is more of a upward facing flower, the way I've done it. And as opposed to the dome shape that we have over there. And again, I'm leaving a lot of white space, and then immediately washing off most of the yellow. I'm going to get some of the brown from here, and I am going to go ahead and dot it on the outskirts of this ever so lightly. So now you can see this is a lot darker compared to the one that we have on the top. And I'm not sure which one I like better. I think I like that one better. But we are just going to go along and see how this dries off and which one we like better. So there's that center. And now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing that we did at the top, except we're using the Filbert for this one. So again, I am going to mix a little bit more water with what we have left here of the blue, and then we're going in and adding the same strokes. You can see I don't have a lot of indication of what is where, and I'm doing my petals from outside, pressing down, going all the way to the center. And now because these two petals were touching, that's why the brown is kind of seeping between both petals. So try and leave white space in between your petals so that if this seeping of color happens, it isn't quite so lumpy looking. Is that the word? So I've kind of used my paper towel and wiped some of it off, which is one way of doing things. So now I'm going to try and spread out my petals. So this time, this seeping of color isn't quite so, like it doesn't go all over. You can actually see that this is one petal, this is another one. You can see the individuality of the petal. So I'm kind of using the base of this brush, which is rounded, to kind of form this so-called petal, and I'm just going to the center. Now you can even use the side of this brush to kind of give the petal a little more of a thin look. So for instance, maybe the petal is sideways. So for instance, something like this. So I've just used the side for that. For this one, I'm just going to use another stroke. So these are like supposed to be easy because you're using your Filbert to create the shape as opposed to using your regular round to create the shape. Now again, I'm going very slowly with the brush, and I'm kind of touching the center because I want to try and get this like little flow of color if I can. And if I can't, I'm going to cheat my way and just extend and get it to the center there so that it comes down with color. Same thing here. And then exactly like what we did at the top for the top floral, we're gonna try and add some added fullness to this flower by adding some additional curvature to these to some of these areas. Now you can do that, or you can decide to sort of leave this as is. It's entirely up to you. I kind of like how this is looking. Like this one's really full, this one's a little less full. So I think I'm going to leave it as is and just add a couple of strokes on some of these petals that are already on there. And remember your white space, guys. The white space is so important to even a white floral, I guess you could say. So I'm going to leave this as is, and then we're going to let this dry a little bit. So in the meantime, we're going to tackle the other flowers over here, which are meant to be a lot looser compared to these. Okay, so these ones are going to be super, super loose. We're doing exactly like what we did up there. We're just gonna be less detailed than what we were up over here, just because these are meant to be like background and these are foreground. All right, so let's start with that. Okay, so again, we're doing the exact same thing that we did previously. We're using the pre-mixed color that we have here, and we're gonna go ahead and dab away. And like I mentioned, I want this to be extra loose compared to what we've done at the top. So it might turn out to be even a lot lighter than what we have at the top, because I'm not going to go in with a darker color. So these ones, I am not waiting. I'm not going to be doing the petals right away, because again, like I mentioned, I'm being less detailed with this. And then so much so I'm just going to take some of the brown directly from here and just add a little bit of brown just at the bottom and just around this area here. Just some at the top a little bit, and then we're doing the little dots at the edges to kind of give it that loose, extra loose look. All right, so we've done that, and now because I want this to be loose but just a tad bit more control as opposed to if we were using the Filbert, I'm going to use the number 4, and I'm using the tip of this brush, and I'm just going to create a couple of strokes in the shape of these petals. And I am kind of almost like doing an outline of these petals. Like almost all these petals are outlines, and I am just going all around till I have a nice full looking flower. Some of these petals I'm just going to do the outer curve, and I think what the key to doing something like that is, I think if we have a nice enough spread out darker petals, and then in between can be the light petals, so it's loose just like that. You can see all the white space in between. Let's get some more of that blue, just a very tiny bit of it, and do this one now. Now the areas that are kind of like touching, you can add a little bit extra blue so it kind of stands out some more as shadow. So for instance, like this area I think would be like a nice shadowy area. So I'm literally just adding a stroke down to the center. Same thing here, adding a little bit of that nice brown or yellow from the center, like touching it so that it kind of seeps into the petal. Now I'm not even like doing the curvature for the petal. I'm literally just using this brush, adding the blue in very loose strokes, giving it that very airy kind of look, so that once we erase the pencil marks, like these will speak for themselves. Pushing all the color in some of the extra blue ones down, and making sure that there's still a lot of white space in between. So here you go, you can see the difference between these ones and these at the top here. So now we can move on to creating, oh, actually before we move on to doing anything, I'm just going to quickly do this one at the top here, which is also supposed to be one that is kind of just airy and at the top. So I am almost kind of outlining these petals, and then just adding like a little bit of a darker blue to some of these petals here, so that it kind of indicates shadow. And loosey, bluey goodness, rather. All right, great. So now we can move on to doing the green stuff. And so I already have my pre-mixed green, so I'm just going to use what I have here and add that to this area first. And I'm adding it very loosely so that it kind of blends in a little bit with the blue in certain areas. And then very loosely, I'm kind of adding a stroke to kind of have it going down. And I love how that color is turning out. So we can move on and kind of do the rest of it. This is a perfect blend, I would say. So having a slight, what's it called, a drawing, so you have an indication of where your elements are going, is quite helpful, especially if you are doing something not for practice but more for commission maybe. So I would suggest maybe for something like this, if you're struggling with composition, to kind of roughly lay out your elements before you go ahead and start painting. So we're just kind of going on. And I am doing very, very loose strokes as I am laying down these. The greenery, rather. And I'm just gonna add a stroke here. See, I'm trying to leave as much white space as I can. And now for this leaf that's coming in, I want to do it in a similar fashion that I did these petals. So I've done one stroke, and then I'm kind of curving it around and pulling it downward so it looks like one of these leaves like this. Lots of white space. And there's another one here that doesn't quite join to the stem. Now I'm getting a little bit of the umber, and I'm just going to add a couple of strokes within these leaves, and just at the top of the stems here, certain areas of the stems, this area of the leaf that we had previously done, just to kind of highlight it, give it some shadow. Perfect. And I like these little highlights, they look great. So we're going to do this leaf right here pretty much in the same manner that we did these. We're making it look very much like petals almost, you can say. quite a few strokes. And yeah, then we have this one left over here on this side. And then we are almost done, and we can start serving everything we have done and decide if we need to add any finishing touches. This is like a bud, I believe. I'm just going to paint it green, but again, notice I am leaving white space. So I've done the same thing that we've done here for the leaves themselves. And then getting some umber, I'm just going to add a little bit of umber to this edge here, and then have it trail down. Perfect. And then we also have this little guy at the top here. So I'm going to go ahead and paint him in. And again, I am doing it in a very loose manner, leaving white space and giving this some flow almost. See, notice how it's like very delicate looking. It doesn't quite look like it is even attaching to the actual stem itself. So I'm doing that on purpose to kind of keep this whole look very cohesive, and so it looks like one element, right? Adding a little bit of that raw umber here so that it kind of ties in with these darker elements, and it looks so pretty. Just highlighting some of these areas. And layering with these colors really enhances the whole look and feel of everything. So just adding a couple of extra elements over there on that side. And I think we are done. All right, so we are done. This is what it looks like. I would like to do one more thing, if you can bear with me. As I mentioned, I would like these two to kind of stand out more than the rest of them, which are supposed to be a lot more in the background and loose. So what I'm going to do is adding a little bit of blue on the side over here. I'm going to highlight some of these petals so that they stand out a bit more. Now you can either do this, or you can take a black, I guess, fine tech kind of pen and just highlight these petals, and then that's how they can stand out for you. Or you can do what I am doing. So I'm just going to add a couple of strokes to kind of really like enhance how these look. So I'm adding them mainly to the center, going outward, and maybe on one side of the petal. And this is my way of kind of adding more shadow to our white flower and making it pop more than the rest. Giving it some added oomph. You can kind of choose to do that for some of the petals just at the bottom, and then maybe just go in the center. I'll leave that up to you. I'm kind of trying different things here, and you can try along with me and then decide what you like better, or feel free to kind of go with the flow if you already kind of know what you're doing. Like that one's a little extra blue. We can kind of fix that by just patting paper towel over it and kind of taking away any additional darker hues. So I'm giving it more layers, and this is what's kind of really packing a punch here. I'm going to get a little bit more of that blue, mixing it off to the side. You can fluctuate between adding the blue in the center here and then doing the little curvature for your petals, and that might be a good enough what's the word I'm looking for, alternating kind of technique that you're using. Now we're on to this one, and I am doing the exact same thing. And I'm trying to be less detailed in this one. Maybe just adding only in the center and then pulling it down. Adding these little strokes only to the center and then kind of extending it to the rest of the petal. So this would be considered layering, and this is another technique in watercolor that you can kind of do to enhance or create a certain effect. I don't like how this part has come out, so I'm just going to take the paper towel and just dab away, and hopefully it doesn't show up as too prominent. But yes, this would be for the actual flowers. Then the next thing I want to do is just add some of the brown to our center. So I'm just going to go ahead and I got the brown directly from here, and I am adding it in these areas to kind of enhance and make it pop a bit more. Same thing over here. I really like how this is turning out. And so this is your loose style of daisies, white daisies. This is my rendition of it. I've done two techniques here, one super easy and loose, and then some a little bit more detailed and darker compared to the loose style here. Technically they're both loose, but one is a little extra loose compared to the other one. We've done like we've used the base drawing here to kind of outline some stuff. On this one, I just use it as a guide to see where things are going. So yeah, this is how it turned out. Hope you guys liked this tutorial. Let me know in the comments what you thought. And if you like this video, if you end up doing this video or this painting, please feel free to tag me in your work on Instagram and Facebook. I'd love to see how it turned out. And if you like these videos, or if you like watercolors, what I'm trying to say, please do consider subscribing to my channel and actually hitting the like button on this video. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you guys on Saturday for another video. Have a great Thursday. Bye.